All right, hey, what's going on, guys? Josh with Paparazzi Imaging and Films, also the content killer, as many of you may know me as. So this is episode 2 of the Vignette podcast. We have a special guest, Levi Ensrud.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. So yeah, this is the second episode. So let's dive into it. So you now are the team manager for Skullquist Racing,
Yep.
and you also kind of going back into time a little bit. You were the 2020 Mechanic of the Year for Snowcross.
Yeah.
So let's start off there. How did that whole deal happen?
I mean, I've been around for a long time, obviously, but probably, I don't know. I mean, maybe I'm wrong by saying this, but like 2017, that year, I proposed to Carl big time about, like, you know, Snowcross should have a Mechanic of the Year. When I kind of was going to step away at that point in time and was hoping to win the award, obviously, being the inaugural one, but it was more towards, wanting to be able to, I guess, like, I don't want to say it, like, when I thought about it for sure, like, I look at racing, especially snowmobile racing, is just like the history. So guys that paved the way before me, and not just as riders, but mechanics, guys like Kirk Hibbert, Russ Ebert, will say, and Tim Bender, and all those kind of guys, they've all transformed into that role. And so I was hoping to win it that year. It didn't happen. They gave it to, I think, Renheim's Mechanics or something when they were at Boss at that year. But that's kind of how that. And then a few years later, I was always busting Alex's chops about it. So that's probably why you always see me get my Mechanic of the Year. He always tags me in or some goddamn thing. So yeah.
That's funny. That's funny. So it was a hard award to get, really, is what you're saying. It was kind of the toss-up between a lot of guys.
Probably. I mean, should be. I mean, there's a lot of guys out there that definitely are, I don't know. For me, I guess I've never really ever had the role of just you're a mechanic, you're a parts changer. It's always, for me, it's been a lot of different facets of the team that I've always been involved in. So
Right.
Yeah.
For sure. So how was it just winning that award in 2020 for you? Was that the year? No, that wasn't the year that you guys won a championship, right?
No, it wasn't the year we won the championship. It was a couple years later, coming off of COVID or whatever. They didn't have an award ceremony that year, so it kind of won it weird in the middle of the year.
Yeah.
So whatever, but it's still awesome to have. I mean, I'm still pumped. I mean, whoever wins that each year is, I hope, like I was just talking about earlier about the, paying homage, I guess you could say, to people that won it before, I guess is the way that I look at it, is that honorable passing the torch. So
For sure. Yeah, that's awesome. So kind of let's go back a little bit farther than that. When and how did you get involved in the snowcross? Did you race prior, like a lot of guys?
Yeah, I raced years ago. In the early 2000s, kind of everybody did, right? Like everybody that you see that's probably around my age, probably, kind of transition into this role once you get too old and washed up. And I never was like good enough, to make it out there. But for sure, raced and then, got into like the mechanic side right away with good friends with Robbie Malinowski. And so that transitioned into me being his mechanic, I think 07, 08. So.
Oh, that was the year that he was on Skidoo with
Boss. Yep.
Yeah,
and Blair Morgan. That was the year that Blair Morgan was supposed to be the teammate.
Wow. Was that when his injury?
That's when his injury happened. Yeah. So and then it was just him, and then I kind of struggled the whole year, and then last 3 races he got like second every time. So that's pretty cool.
Wow. Wow. Interesting.
Yeah.
That's crazy. Again, this is the whole point of having a conversation. I didn't know that you race. It was just like, I always see you riding dirt bikes and posting stuff during snowcross, but that's awesome. So 2016, 2017, Cam won the championship, right?
Yep.
And then Narsa won X Games.
Yeah.
So talk about that a little bit.
That was, I was at Shearings before that, and, they were partly on Skidoo's part, some people involved with that. Not Steve or, some of the probably guys on the team then. I knew a lot of the guys at Skidoo before, and, I got to think now it's 10 years ago. So I hate to date myself, but, I didn't hold back when I was, I still don't, but I'm a little bit more refined, I guess. But, there was, everybody's pushing so hard. So, kind of got bumped out of that situation, being up there at Shearings, which, no hard feelings. I mean, still get along with all those guys that are there. There's still all the guys that I worked with then are still there. So,
right.
But that year, switching to Polaris and being with Henches and all that stuff, that was a great year. I mean, that's one that obviously, the beginning of the year started off a little rough, and I think in the first two races we only had one podium. Cody got like third or something, I think, in Colorado. Wow. And then I kind of after that kind of got on a little bit of a tear and won some races, then got hurt again in the middle of the season, and won X Games with Peter, which was kind of the track was obviously pretty tight and pretty small, but
that was the last year.
Yeah, last year.
It was on kind of an oval uphill.
Yep.
And it was kind of really not like a snowcrossy track.
Yeah,
in my opinion.
Yeah, it wasn't, but it was funny because you go back and think about it, but like I remember the explanation from like Joe Duncan and stuff like that. It was like, oh, we can't. This is the only area that we can have. Well, then the next day it was, I think, the first year of snow bikes, and like the track was like all over the place. Yeah. So it was kind of kicking the nuts. I think at that time, I think Joe was looking at snow bikes would be the future, and
right.
That was his outlet, obviously, to have things go on at the X Games for him. So whatever. But yeah, back to winning that. It was. I mean, I've gotten one other medal my first year with Robbie. You got silver, and then winning with gold. I mean, it was completely unexpected. Mm-hmm. You didn't know what was going to happen, but Peter got a great start, and he just really managed the race. It was really, really special. That's one I'll always remember the rest of my life for sure.
Right.
And then as the season went on, Cam kind of caught fire, hit and miss. He had his ups and downs that year, and then obviously shearing sleds were so fast. And of course, each year that I've left a team, mm-hmm. going back to when I was at Carlson Motorsports, like Andrew, I think, had one podium, and then I left to go to Shearings, and then he went to Duluth after tearing his ACL and won. He won,
wow.
And it was like, oh my God. And then when I left Shearings, and then they went out in Duluth and went 1-2,
mm-hmm.
and
right.
And then the same thing this year happened with, I left Henches and Cody went 1-1. So I think, it's kind of like trends me, I guess. Maybe I was a Cancer or whatever, but for sure, Cody that season had his ups and downs, and he pulled it off, though. I mean, like shearing sleds were super fast. Tim and Lincoln that year were super consistent. I think going in the year-end points or whatever, I think it was Tucker and shearing Lincoln and Tim and Peter and Cody that year, and that was the top 5 in points. And mm-hmm. there's a big separation, guys that had their stuff together and figured out. But at the end of the year, Cody was just he did get lucky where Tim was leading that race on Friday night, blew a belt, tightened up the points. And
was that a New York race?
No, Geneva.
Oh, Geneva. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And New York, Lincoln, I think, was leading, and on the last lap, he blew a belt on triple. And but and then the rest of the weekend on, it just gained momentum. And I mean, there's a lot of stories behind that too. With, I think Cody got hurt midway through the year, practicing at ERX. ate shit or something and hit his other shoulder that year
geez.
before. But yeah, he managed, and at the time too, like the way that we pulled it off with Henches, like there was only 3 guys. It was me, Dan. I did the truck driver and Peter's mechanic. Dan, who's still Cody's mechanic, was there,
right.
And then Tim. And then there was another guy, Sean Ray, that came around, half the races, maybe not even, but just on weekends. And but yeah, it was a really small group, and we had a lot of travel that year. I think that's for me, being a truck driver that year and being a mechanic, going out to Colorado twice. That was a lot. It was a lot. So
yeah, that's a lot.
I'm glad that the schedule's changed and it's been a little bit easier. But yeah, it was definitely. Cody winning that championship was the last day, the last race counted. It was down to the wire, and he pulled it off. Where
right, he wanted it really bad.
Yeah, he wanted it, and he showed it, and when there was blood in the water, he got it, So that was really cool, and yeah, it was a special time for sure. So.
I bet, especially for Henches too.
Yeah. I mean, they struggled for years, and Tucker was
on fire throughout his whole career.
Yeah, I mean, and he won that year too, and he won, I think, Saturday night there too. He won at Geneva on the last weekend, but that year was the year Hunter Houle died. I'm obviously close with the Houle family as well, but with that hitting Tucker was injured a little bit through the year too, and I think, just.
A lot of things.
A lot of variables, yeah. He was, a bit off, and, there was guys, especially Shearing's guys, they had their stuff figured out that whole year.
Right. Weren't they on a new sled that year, too? Or was it?
No, that was just, they had just refined their whole program, and, I think... You'd have to go and talk to Steve, and I don't know how much he'd tell you, or you'd probably have to get Elliot. He'd probably be more honest about it, not throwing Steve under the bus. But, I think they had titanium pipes and some cool things that they did, and they really had those sleds pretty light. And
a lot of R&D, huh?
Yeah, and so, so did everybody. Tucker had, 3 or 4 guys that worked just for him, with his dad, who was amazing at, tuning the sled as far as the suspension goes and how all that worked. But those guys over there at Shearing's did their homework, and we had our stuff going too, and it was a really good battle for all the teams involved.
Right. Right. Well, that's good, because it makes it really competitive, and makes that championship feel like a real championship at that point, when you're racing against guys that are top of the line.
That's probably the closest one that I can remember, at the pro levels.
Right.
Whether that in the last however many years, but yeah, I mean, we were close another year, and I think 2019 was the first year Elias won, and Boss had Elias, and they had Aki, and Aki, just it got close to the end of the year for sure.
Right? So. Wasn't that the year that Elias had an injury? Or was that the next year, and they didn't know they didn't know if he was going to be on the team?
Yeah, next year, yeah. But
so you brought up an interesting point. I had no idea that you were with Carlson for a little while.
Yeah. I was there for 3 years. So
was that the year that obviously Andrew was on the team, but Ryan Springer, was he?
No, that would have been the second year that I was there. When I was there, we first started on Articats, and then...
so Johan was...
Yeah, Johan was, yep.
Johan Lidman, wow.
Lidman, and then... so Lidman and Andrew, and, the first year was on Articats, then we went to Polaris's, and, that was definitely interesting years there, but, for sure... great times, and the second year we brought on Ryan. We helped him out as he was in the sport class, and it was his first year, I think, racing, or second, whatever it was. And
right.
Chris started helping him out. It was, the kid started winning, and it was like, whoa.
Right.
And then next year, I think he went full on, and I wasn't there. 2 years later, I'm not quite sure. I don't remember exactly, but
right.
It's been a minute. So.
Yeah, for sure. Well, you've been around the block for a long time. It seems like,
I have. I mean, unfortunately, there's I've been around to a lot of different teams, but I've also seen like, the goods and bads, and everybody's got their positives and everybody's got their negatives and how they do it, and I think that brings me to where I am now. So
Right, yeah, for sure. You got a lot of experience, and now being team manager for Skull Coast Racing, and you were a full-time mechanic with Peter Narsa too, right?
Yep.
With Chris as well. So yeah, there's a lot of knowledge in this team.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, how it all started basically a year ago to, not far off of this date, where we're at today. But, yeah, for sure it was pretty loose conversations about coming to help Drew and, and they had a semi in this facility. I'm just like, man, it's just, you got to get a pro because otherwise I don't really want to do it.
Yeah.
And yeah, it worked out, I guess. It was definitely touch and go for a while to get Peter, and that was a whole process. But yeah, now it's definitely worked out. I mean, Peter did a great job for us. So
Right. He was guns a-blazing. He's winning X Games and always being a title contender and being on the podium when with henches and stuff like that. So how is the relationship with you and Chris? Because you guys were working together at Henches. He was over there for a little while, and then he was going to be the mechanic for
Kenny?
Yeah, Kenny Mandrick.
Well, yeah, I mean, how that all started, I was with Henches, and they were doing their own thing, and they were, they'd come by and just, they wanted to, with this vlog and all that kind of stuff, and kind of got
the vlog.
Yeah, I mean, and then it was like, they just kind of was friendly, and then Kenny started doing good. I mean, and the second year he came around a little bit more, and let's back this up. No, the first year back from COVID, so he had to live down here the whole time.
Yeah, he couldn't go back and
couldn't go back, and like, I like Kenny and I like Chris, and those guys were just, privateering by themselves. And
right.
I think one of the things I definitely did, like me and Austin Fenner, we would give them parts and tracks and, different things because they were just, his sled was shot, and we'd try to help them out and do whatever we could. And yeah, I just started using him kind of as a testing platform, and then the next year he was going to go to Pro Light, and
obviously he got
hurt.
I
got those guys to come on board, and I was driving the nail home with Nate Henches and Tim Bender to use him as being able to be a part of our team, and then being able to get information from him as far as clutching setups and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, because they were on fire.
Yeah, they were.
They had their stuff tuned up really good.
And then he got hurt, and then obviously Tack he didn't work for Henches, and then we got him to come on and help Tim with some data stuff and just be a part of the team for the whole year. So that worked out. And then when I had the opportunity to come here, I went to talk to Tack and just kind of like, what's it going to take? And like, I don't want to ruin your relationship with Kenny, and just kind of, just kind of came to him ending up here, and that how it all worked out. So
nice. So, yeah. It seems like you guys really gel well together.
Yeah, it's fun. I mean, we have our
especially with the vlog.
Yeah, I mean, for sure. Obviously, he does a great job with that, and we're lucky, to have guys like him and you guys doing more stuff, and it's all just part of trying to make the sport bigger. So
absolutely, yeah. Well, I love media. Yeah. I love shooting this stuff, and you see me around the track running around like a chicken with my head cut off, doing as much as I can, especially on social media, because the sport can't grow without media.
No, it can't.
And the way that Chris does his vlog, especially handing it over to you sometimes,
Yeah, I'm not the greatest for that, but you know,
It's the personality.
Yeah, I mean, some people get me, some people don't. For the most part, I'm pretty dry with my humor, but
Yeah.
you know, that's I guess maybe a generational thing. But you know, I don't really care if you like me or you don't like me. So
Right.
I'm past that point in my life. So
Nice. So moving on to this season, seeing Drew win Pro Light Sunday, what was that like, and what was that like for the team, for you, Chris, everybody, especially Drew?
yeah, I mean, I can't imagine, you know, for Drew. I mean, some very unexpected. Not taking anything away from anybody that wins, whether it's the pro class all the way down to the little kids classes. You know, like a win is a win, and it's earned. You know,
Yeah,
none
either
of this
way.
shit is given to you.
Right.
And you know, whether you want to say, you know, Drew got lucky or you know, whatever, he still had to race the race and pass those guys, whether they made a mistake or not.
And he was in a position to where if somebody did make a mistake to
Yeah,
pounce
I
on that.
mean, obviously Creighton, he was in third place, and then his engine blew up. A lot of guys' engines blew up that day.
It's terrible.
Yeah, and luckily his made it, and you know, it is what it is. So as a team, you know, my reaction was just joy. I mean, so happy for Drew. There is not a single kid that I know at 18 years old that is giving and as selfless as he is. And people don't know about him. Great kid. Like, I asked him all year, I pushed on him. And literally every day he was like a puppy that keep coming back and wagging his tail every day when he came into work. And
Right.
you know, you just don't get that out of kids. So I'm just really joyful to see him as a person, you know, use this as a tool of racing in life. This is a real small part of your life.
Right.
When you're a rider, you know, you really cramp it down and it's going to be this big of your whole life. But
Yeah.
what this does for you in the long term, it's invaluable to what racing can teach you to be as a person later in life. And I think that's what I see out of him, and I was just so happy. As a team, yeah, it's great for the team, but that's small potatoes. Like, literally, it's seeing a kid get success.
Yeah.
Seeing all the kids, everybody that was a part of our team get success, that was just the icing on the cake, him
Right.
winning on Sunday. And man, it was awesome. And I just remember, especially, and it's not that long ago, but I just remember getting away from the whole crowd and looking back and like how many friends and family and all these people that was just all over, and you know, this mob of people, like
Right.
that doesn't happen all the time. You know?
No.
That's so cool, and you know, it's joyful for our sport, and it's awesome. So super happy it was him, and it couldn't happen to a better person. So
Yeah, absolutely. Hard work and dedication and the willing to be up there.
yeah, I mean, he pushed. He wanted to be a pro light rider this season, and you know, we made a decision, you know, with his dad and him and Ski-Doo and to stay in sport. And you know, I think people sit there and say like, oh yeah, you know, he finished second in points, whatever you want to call it, and you know, getting help from us. But you know, the sport class is really the pro light class, and you know, and
Yeah.
you
The only
know,
difference is in exhaust.
yeah, and it, you know, to help these kids, it's the feeder system, it's the ladder system of our sport, and you know, our team has a great situation there with what we have with between Drew and Brady, and each one of them moving up next year is going to be great because you know, Drew being in pro light, obviously he showed he could win,
Yeah.
and you know,
Big target on his back.
yeah, I mean, it's not going to be easy. He's going to still have to work, and there's got a lot of guys that I think one thing that's not taking anything away from Drew's win, because obviously he did it, and like awesome. But one thing that's really hard is you do that at the end of the season, it's a whole other thing at the beginning of next season. Everything just resets, and I'll use this as an example. Ogimar was winning the year before, you know, and then came out this year. It took him half the season. Things change. People get faster.
Yeah.
Elements
absolutely.
change, and just everything you don't know where you're going to fit in right away, and that is why we held him back this year. Is like, I don't want to send him out to the wolves, get eaten alive, and then just completely discourage him from the sport. Yeah, he's won in sport before, but he never made it through a season without getting hurt.
Right.
Until this year.
Right.
So.
That's true. That's true.
And so, I know people bag on that kind of stuff, and oh well, Jordan, he won the year before, he should have moved up, and it's like, dude, the kid's only 18 years old.
Yeah.
Like.
Yeah.
You're racing against grown men at that point. Like.
Right.
Like, that's just one small example, but there's a lot of guys that did the same thing. Cody was that guy when Jordan would, flip-flop the roles, and yeah, I mean, I think the tough thing in our sport to get growth, to get people to move up, is because the manufacturers support all the way down in the sport class, and everybody's afraid to get smoked.
Right.
They're not, this day and age we're sitting here, it's like you go through a whole season, you don't get a top 5, and it's like, oh, I suck, I'm out.
Right,
I spent all this money for nothing, and it's like, I could have stayed home or whatever. But,
went on a nice vacation or something.
But yeah, I mean, that's definitely, I think that's something that our sport, there isn't a ton of money in this sport. I mean, there is and there isn't.
Right.
There is for the top guys.
To a certain degree.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So, but no, our team. Looking back on the whole year, like, I never would have thought any of the success that we had. Like, of course, you want the success that we did have,
right.
But every one of those kids, the whole way through our program, every one of them stepped up. Mm-hmm. Every one of them stepped up, and they worked harder. People, we were here and, riding on Saturday, Sundays, and grinding in the middle of the season when other guys might have been
taking a little rest day.
Yeah, and lucky we have the facility in our backyard to do it, but
yeah, that's pretty nice.
Yeah.
You don't have to go miles away to practice.
No, it's nice that you can just walk out that door and you're here and everything's contained. If something breaks, it's really nice.
And you don't have a lot of eyes on you either. It's a
No.
private facility, and it's like you don't have other manufacturers looking at you besides Skidoo guys.
No, and we did have a couple of ride days out here and had fun with that. With I think one of the kids' birthdays, or I don't remember what it was, but we had a couple times there. But no, it's just great camaraderie here. It's like never want to go home, which is a nice feeling in a sense. Like you come in here in this area here, and it's like shit. We sometimes have a beer and order food or make food, and it's like, this is awesome. So
right, it's home.
Yeah,
home away from home.
Yeah.
Really.
So yeah,
that's awesome. Yeah, it's a nice facility here. When I rolled up to do this, to this podcast with you, I wasn't expecting much, but then I saw the house and I saw the shop, and I'm like, holy crap, this is sick.
Yeah, I mean, it's awesome that a guy did this, but one point that I want to make for sure about this is that awesome facilities and brand new this and that doesn't make a guarantee that you're going to have success. It doesn't make a guarantee that it helps you.
Right.
But I can tell you flat out, I've worked in dungeons before and had just as much success.
Yeah.
And, people can, say this or that or whatever about Alan, don't really care, but, the way we've gone about it has definitely been very, very respectful in a way that, we're not sitting here just pouring money out of our assholes.
Right. Yeah, true.
Because he wouldn't allow it and I wouldn't allow it.
Right.
Like, this is not just we need to have this, go buy it.
It's not a fashion show.
No. I mean, we have nice things and he likes to have nice things, but it doesn't mean that it's just like an open budget to just
do whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah. That makes sense. That makes sense because you can't be flashy out there. You gotta.
No,
I'd rather have old gear and go out there and race and
Yeah.
have a really good sled than have $1 million, hauler or whatever. But that's just me. I would rather have the results than have the flashy stuff. you know.
Yeah, I mean, but yeah, like as far as
Not to say that your guys' semi is $1 million, but it is a very nice semi.
yeah, no, for sure. But yeah, like our trailer's a '98. You know,
Yeah.
we remodeled it, and people are, you don't know it going inside of it, right? You think
Right.
it's all brand new, but yeah, it's everything's great. Like in this environment for sure. So
That's awesome. That's awesome. It's a good, like I said, a good facility when I rolled up. But let's talk about the talent pool. We talked about it a little bit here with Drew and stuff like that. Do you feel as if the younger generation is coming up and wanting to be, that next Tugger Hibbert, that next Cody Cam, or is it they're just kind of going out there for fun, or kind of like what's your opinion on the young pool?
well,
in the sport?
I think like there's definitely young pool talent out there. The sleds make it a hell of a lot easier for the kids right out of the gate. Whether it's a Ski-Doo Polaris or even Cat, there's help, there's resources, there's ability to make the sled decent for a beginner rider. That didn't exist 10 years ago, 5 years ago.
Yeah.
So that being said, I think that definitely helps kids not get discouraged. But I think what you see a lot of times is kids start so young, then they get to where they're about 15 years old, where they got to start making that push, if you will, or more
Take it more serious.
take it more serious when they're, and their moms and dads have always kind of supported them or whatever it may be. There's always that, how bad do you want it?
Yeah.
And I think kids can start off now when they're younger, and I have it here with the kids that I worked with. I didn't know what to expect this year. I'll use AJ and Y as an example. They had champ sleds and won on those things, and then they moved to the big sleds and they struggled their first couple years. So,
Right.
I think that's always the tough thing, is kind of figuring out what's your real expectations of your kid, and just because they don't go out and do good in a heat race doesn't mean that they're not good, or they didn't have a great season.
Right.
You got to look at the big picture of a lot of things, and I think that's something that our sport is so short. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
it's a quick jump to conclusions, Matt, that, there is no guarantee, even if you make it to the pro light class or pro class, that you're going to make a lot of money.
Right. Well, I don't think there's a guarantee in any kind of sport if you look at baseball, basketball, or football.
No.
Really, it's
No.
you could be in JV or whatever the format is, and you could not get picked.
Oh, for sure.
For
For
whatever.
sure. Yeah. But I think the talent pool is good. Like, you look in the transition classes, and I've never looked at it until this year because the kids were in it.
Right. True.
Some of the junior classes, some of the, sport light and sport, there's like 28 or 20, depending on the weekend and where you're at. But
Yeah.
I think what's really hard is there's not a solid regional circuit that lets kids not put the pressure on them to be in the national races, that they have to go to the national races to get looked at.
Any kind of recognition.
And
right?
that I think is what the hard part is in our sport, is that the kids or the parents or whatever you want to say, like, we have to be at the nationals. We have to do this. I'm not big on that. Like, I wish there was more of, I mean, ERX is great what they do with their, they've done amazing with their grassroots program. I
Right.
think they still have great turnout there. But I think for ISOC, I know, Midwest Snow
Snowcross.
Crowd, they had a decent turnout. The 286 is,
Yep. Yeah, there's a lot of series.
there's a lot of little series for those guys, and I really wish sometimes that the parents would put a little bit more focus on those races for them. Work on moving them up a class. Like, that's how it used to be. Even back in my day, is I'd be a sport rider at the Nationals, but I'd go race pro
At a regional.
regional.
Yeah, for
and
sure.
you still have to race a guy like Justin Tate or some other guys out there that would come and. But yeah, no, I mean, I think there's plenty of talent out there. It's just, I think we have this expectations that we start out as fun and then instantly we hit the switch that it's serious.
Serious, yeah.
And it doesn't have to be, I don't think. I mean, we all do this because it's fun at the end of the day. That is
Right.
like, we all love it, but it's a hobby fun for us.
Yeah.
And so when you start losing that side of it and it's more trying to make it towards a job and then you don't have success, yeah, I can understand frustration.
Yeah, it's true.
But, at the end of the day, you go out there and win pro light, it's not going to, you're not going to be able to go through college with that kind of money. You're still going to have to grind and you're still going to have to work your ass off. And that definitely needs to, I think, be driven home like fun.
Right.
Fun.
Yeah.
And the rest will come.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, because if you're not having fun, then why do it?
Yeah.
And going back to what you were saying about more regional based stuff, I think that's very true. There needs to be a level of a regional, like there's all those regionals, Midwest, 286, ERX, but I think in order for the sport to grow, in my opinion, I think they should do kind of like what they do in motocross with the Loretta Lynn qualifiers.
Yeah.
I think because that is very good. You have to qualify, and then you can go and get your pro card or whatever, ABC, and then you win that championship, you keep moving up.
Right.
And then that's how you get your recognition, and then you go to the national level because, like you said, you go to the national level, it's like, okay, you either got to take it serious or you have it fun,
Right.
And seeing it, going back to the pro mod days, that was serious. That is because there was money on the line. Those guys did not give a crap.
Well, I don't know. I don't really see it from that point of view myself, but
No,
I think just as
because there was a lot of money on the line, wasn't there?
it's really no different.
Yeah, but those guys took it as a serious sport.
Who?
Like Cam, Tucker, they would R&D.
Yeah, but that was years and years and years of jumping each year, layering something you learned the year before on the next, and that kind of transition to the next and next and next. But it wasn't necessarily more money. It's just as much money to go racing now with stock sleds as it is with mod sleds.
Yeah.
The only difference where more money might have been on the line is that you could get outside sponsorships.
That's what
as non-OEM
right.
aftermarket stuff. You could do, but towards the end of it, even the last year of mods, like everything started getting cut down. Like it was stock, piston, stock motor. You could change the head and pipe. Carburetors were stock. I mean, there wasn't really. The only thing that was cool was the openness of being able to innovate on the sled.
Yeah.
And I think that's
with chassis and suspension.
But as far as money goes, I don't think there's much different.
Okay.
Budgets were pretty much the same as what they are now. I mean, so I think just from my point of view, I don't think it's any different. I mean, nowadays with being a stock rule, you have to be more perfect with everything.
Yeah, that is very true.
People have this misconception that our mod sleds are so much faster, and they're not. They're slower.
Yeah, I would agree to that.
They're slower than what we are now. They handle like we were talking about this the other day. It's like who was I talking to? I think Nick Lorenz. Me and him were bullshitting the other day on the phone, and I was just like, he's like, oh, it's just it's cool. It's cool to see Cody's mod sled or whatever from Ross's is still at the player's shop. And
right.
I'm like, yeah, those. I mean, but
it's a piece of history.
It is. But what I'm saying is, you take Cody Cam and you put him on that sled, and you put him on the sled that he's racing. And if you could have, from a whole shot perspective, all the way to handling perspective,
Yep.
he would sit there and ride that. If you could make that sled that he finished, that mod sled exactly, we could I know the parts and pieces exist still with Bender. We'd have to put it together. I mean, for the most part, that sled that's at the shop is race. But if he were to get on that sled and go ride it, he would be shaking his head silly, going, how in the fuck did I ride that? 100%.
Yeah.
And even if you had two guys that were the same caliper, you know, and put one guy on a mod sled and one guy on a stock sled now, he'd smoke him. They'd like.
So what you're saying is the R&D from the factory has risen a level from what it was back in the pro mod open category.
Right. Well, you didn't have to be so spot on with clutching.
Right.
You didn't have to be like the sleds run better. They're EFI. They're you know, they handle better. We've looked at suspension more depth. We've looked at the whole chassis, how it, you know, there's just so many more things that have evolved since then.
Right.
Could it have evolved the same with mods? Well, for sure, but everybody would have just sat there, and if EFI came to the table and it was worse right away, well, you'd sit there and stick with a mod,
Right.
like carbureted sleds. So
Right.
the evolution wasn't there, and I think that's, yeah, obviously, I would love to go back to mods. I think it's cool, but it's not reality. I would rather see, you know, the way that it is right now with the rules. It's stock, but everybody's pushing the edge of borderline,
Yeah.
you know, and questionable, and have someone look at it before, and you know, that to me, yeah, I think that's, I think in my perfect world of snowmobile racing, I would love to see it be just the motor stay stock with the pipe like it is, and us being able to do chassis things and an open chassis rule basically, and that would be more fun than anything, you know.
Just leaving the motor the way it is. Yeah.
Yeah, and,
Okay.
and what that would do and what that could do is help the manufacturers, you know, integrate things into the production. The problem is now you make a part, you know, the lead times for the manufacturers are done in January. Yeah, I know for Polaris and Ski-Doo, they're done in January. Their deadline for the 24 is already done. For
Right.
the lead times of all the parts that have to be made, all that stuff. Now there's other little things that they can tweak in between here and there. But as far as the main,
Anything outside of that, it would have to be somebody
right,
that's
and
making
so,
parts.
you know, if you had, you know, just small things like that you could do, I think it would be a lot more fun, but you know, but it also leads a lot more problems, because as soon as you go down that rabbit hole with one thing, and let's say I wanted to do something on my sled, you know, relocate the skid or do something, and then all of a sudden we go out there, and every time we keep having a problem.
Yeah.
The manufacturer that supports me is going to go the other way, and it drives a wedge between the team and the manufacturer, because
Anything performance.
you're dead set on going down this avenue, and they want you to stay here, and then you went down this avenue, and now you're married to it. You have to keep seeing it through,
Right.
even though you're not having the results that they want. And I think that's something that people overlook about mods. I don't know that it's the best for our sport. I think the way it is right now is pretty good.
Budgetary wise, I would say so.
Yeah.
You know, it keeps it budget friendly for everybody.
Yeah, I mean, the mod sleds back in the day, yeah, they were cool. They were.
Yeah.
But I think we need to leave it at that.
Okay. Okay. Well, what about coming from a fan base? You're obviously a mechanic and team manager, but you know, I see a lot of people on social media wanting them back. I would say because it's an experience. It's exciting.
Yeah.
To hear those kind of, you know, deep throat sleds. Now we're just hearing ear bleeders.
Yeah.
You know,
yeah. No, I agree. I don't know. I mean, that's cool for a fan base, I guess you could say, that they still remember that or want it. But, you know, I don't, you know, things change.
Yeah.
Right? Like,
yeah, absolutely.
I mean, do I think
evolution?
Do I think, you know, there's no question about it. I remember, you know, of course I'm going to sound biased because I was on a Hench's mod, but a Bender pipes on those things spinning at 9,200 sounded sick.
Yeah.
They sound way better than the single piper.
Yeah.
And, you know, yeah, I miss those days, but that was a lot of work.
Mm-hmm.
It was, and I don't know if the juice is worth the squeeze to just be able to put pipes on. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
that's a lot on the manufacturer then, and I had a cost because you have all these sleds that run on EFI. They'd have to have a lot of R&D into making a tune that runs 2 pipes, and it's just
It is a lot. It's
It
a
is
lot
a
of
lot.
work. Yeah.
it is a lot. But
In my defense, I think, I think having a limited pro mod class would be cool. Maybe like you said, just doing chassis adjustments or leaving the chassis the way it is and kind of having a 2-pipe with a stinger or something like that, and having limited engine, engine performance. But then that leads back to what you were saying is you do all that performance and you're diving into something's going to break. There's
Well-
leverage somewhere to where, all right, now we got to put more parts on this thing.
Right. And you got to think about this. At least this is the way I think about it, right? Okay. Basically, November 15th till March, end of
Yeah.
March. So we're talking about 4.5 months. Now you're adding more work and responsibility to each team to try and come up with something. And then if you're behind the 8 ball, you're really screwed, and you're looking more into motor performance
Yeah.
than other things that you should be worrying about, keeping the chassis together,
Yeah,
making
reliability.
sure reliability things. And I think, I mean, I wish there was things, but at the same time, it's like, man,
It's pretty good right now.
It's pretty good right now. Like, it's pretty good. Like, not getting your hands full of gas, jetting sleds,
Yeah.
pulling pipes out when they're hot. Like, there's a lot of things like people don't realize that go into making 2 pipes work on a sled, and getting it so it's usable power for the guys to you got your pipes to run, and you can do all that stuff on a dyno, but then getting the clutch to work out in the field, and it's a lot of work, man.
Yeah.
And we're limited on time. We really are. We're limited on snow conditions. We're limited on resources. We're limited on all the above, and it's not. It's our sport is not that big.
Right. Yeah. It's only 4 seasons long, like you said.
Yeah.
It's
It's
tight.
not. And there's break in there with Christmas, and then there's New Year. There's just, and then we're on the road. There really isn't that much time that you really get to test and make yourself better. And honestly, it's like, even out here having our own facility, like, we've tested until we're blue in the face. And you really need to go back to the racetrack, and you can think you're so light years ahead on racing yourself, and then you get to the racetrack and you get your doors blown off, and you're like,
Yeah. True.
it looks like Sanford's and Sons are on the trailer. You're trying to get everything put back to the way it was, and I mean, we're in a good spot.
So then, we'll get off the topic here in a second. One more thing is, what if there was more money involved? If the pro, going back, but also into the future.
Yeah.
What if there was more money involved to have the pro mod class? And there was, okay. So one more thing too is, I remember seeing during the pro mods, there was so many more people in the audience, in the grandstands, watching these races. Obviously we have live stream now, but but having that, would that drive more fans back?
I don't think so. I think,
because I do see a lot of comments like that.
yeah, well, I mean, you see it more than I do, I guess. I mean, I'm not looking for it, so
Yeah.
I think the biggest thing, like, maybe, but that's not a guarantee that just because we have a different sled that's going to put more asses in the seats.
Okay. And what about sponsor dollars?
I don't know. I don't think there's really, like, this world's tight right now.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's only so much that companies can give, and manufacturers aren't going to give any more money to us to do that.
Yeah, they're already budgeted.
They're already budgeted out. And so you're going to have to lean on a performance company like Speedworks or Bikeman or whatever other ones exist out there. I don't even know too many other of them, but I'm just using that as a short example. But I don't think the juice would be worth the squeeze. I just don't. I think putting more asses in the sands is going to determine you going to a race, and this is my 2 cents of it. You going to a race, and the weather depends on how many people we get there.
Like Fargo, or we.
Well, yeah. I mean,
not that many. People.
I don't want to pick on Fargo because obviously they've tried, but
great facility too.
yeah, I mean, it could work out, but the problem is just timing, right?
Yeah.
You know,
And how many more people are interested in snowcross now than they were before? You know, I think that's a really hot topic. Is like everything gets so repetitive, and how many people do want to go out in the, negative 40 degrees at Fargo and watch a snowcross race? Not very many. This past season we had a few hundred more, but again.
I mean, I think location is key where we go.
Mm-hmm.
I think the timing of the years, or the timing of the event of how many people you're going to draw. I mean, you go to Deadwood, that's always a win. Canterbury's always a win.
Yep.
I'm not sure for Iowa or Michigan this year. I think Sioux Falls was a win. I think they had such a giant facility. It kind of reminds me of Chicago when we raced there. Like they had big grandstands, and it doesn't look that big,
Right,
but
right.
I think from a standpoint of putting more people to watch our sport, there's got to be something more to the sport, right? Mm-hmm. There's got to be. I'm not a person to make those calls or whatever, but I really think that there's places that could do it, like a place like Valcourt, where they do have a ice oval and other events going on at the same time, and then snowcross goes in between that. And
right.
I think as an industry, if there was a few of those races that we could have where, whether it's Eagle River, whether it's, I'm just using those as small examples, but I think there's places where, nobody was a big fan of freestyle, but honestly, I think that's something that people do look and go to watch as an entertainment value for kids and for family. And I think, I don't know, I really think what snowcross needs to do is turn it into a night show, a real night show where, you get into, this year, obviously, we had Triple Crown. I think they need to have a Triple Crown at Deadwood on Saturday night, and I think they need to do that in New York.
Almost like Supercross, where they just dedicate a couple rounds to it.
Yeah, and then I think the other thing is, I think this is my suggestion. It doesn't mean anything, but I think they should be racing a 2-moto format.
I think that would be really, really cool.
I think they should change. The heat racing sucks for the pro level. It just does. I think it just gets so soggy. It's like guys are just you're already in the final.
Yeah. Yeah, especially with how limited our pro class was this year.
But but everybody says that it's such a limited class, but you know what? Every year it's been the same.
Yeah.
The last 15 years that I can remember, there's either 10 or 12 guys in it.
Yeah, I was looking at the results the other day, and what is there, 15 guys that are in the final,
Yeah.
So, and basically 20 guys enter in and only 15 get the race, and the rest that don't make it in have to go home and hope they make it to the next race.
But I think that's the level of where, our sport should be, and it should be that way. I think Pro Light and Pro should race a 2-moto format, and I think, in between that first, you race right away, Pro Light, just like Supercross does. Your first moto, Supercross is different. Obviously, they have stadium, they go heat race, then they.
So you mean motocross?
I would do more like a motocross, but yet in the middle of those, give us a bigger break, and then have our last moto be our end thing, and you can fill in between there a freestyle show, a sport final, and I'm sure I'll get shit for saying it, but whether it's Pro-Am 30 plus and Pro Women's, the Pro Women's class has gotten pretty
exciting.
Pretty exciting in the last few years. Malene's doing amazing. You could throw that one, I guess. Mm-hmm. I'm half and half if that should stay in the night show, but
Right.
Maybe the pro women's class one night and the champ sleds another night. But
Yeah.
I think try to get all the amateur stuff and the stuff done during the day. Make your 6 o'clock or 6:30 your opening ceremonies and be done at 9:30 and pull it off in the 3-hour window that you need to do, and that still gives us your qualifying would be early in the day, in the afternoon, because what we found this year, I think, is there's guys out there that can throw down fast laps and may not have the fastest sled and still be able to be competitive in the first round of that stuff. And then there's the guys are doing something in practice, wanting to be the fastest and wanting to earn that gate spot. And,
Right.
I think that makes the competition through the whole day better.
Yeah, I will agree with that.
We've never done it, and that's where everybody doesn't want to change the sport. It's oh no, this is the way we've done it. This is the way it's going to be.
Yeah.
And I don't like that side of our sport, but it's they did try stuff this winter, like the Triple Crown, and try to mix it up, so that was cool. But yeah, I think making a pro track at night
would be
that's what's going to showcase your talent. It's hard to do. It's hard to find people to work at ISOC. I mean, it's hard to find groomer guys that are going to be
dedicated.
Yeah, of course, once again, I'll sound biased, right? By going to Eagle River, and I was with Oscar, and he won 2 nights the first weekend we were there. That track was gnarly.
Yeah.
That track was gnarly.
Was that the first weekend or the second
First weekend.
First weekend, yeah.
That track was gnarly. And the second weekend was too, but it wasn't near what the first weekend was. And you get, that's what our sport practices on. When you go to just a preseason at ERX or Shearings or wherever, and I'll tell you what, man, there's guys out there, when you watch, the kids go out as soon as the groomer goes on the track, other kids go out, and then when the top pro guys that go out there, they hammer.
Yeah.
They're freaking hammering when it's
they're pros,
beat.
yeah. For
that
sure.
track's beat.
And that's what I say is these tracks should be, limited to grooming because they're pros.
Yep.
Leave big holes, leave, double lips and make it so that they are out there trying. Don't make it dangerous.
Yeah.
Keep it
you can
level-headed, but don't.
Sioux Falls, they did a great job with that, I thought.
Yeah, for sure.
There's some tracks they did do that. The first ERX race, no. That was terrible. That wasn't all their fault, but, they got to have ownership in it too. But for sure, there's tracks that they could do better at, and they need to be able to slow down themselves to get that better, so they have a better product to sell.
For sure, yeah. And going back to the pro open mod days is I always go back and watch the GoPro videos. Cam at Michigan at Soaring Eagle, that track was huge.
Yeah.
Even when we went there in 2018 and 19, that track was huge. We had 2 dog legs or whatever it was, and it was that's a pro track. Fargo, Sioux Falls.
Yeah, I mean it gets, and that's the catch-22, right? You get you get a long track. It's cool to see that kind of side of snowcross, but you can't have all the features that you're going to have, and you're not going to have all the grooming. It's a give and take, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, snow moves a lot more now than it ever has with the sleds the way they are. And for sure, there's always things that can be better. So.
Yeah, for sure. I agree with that.
But yeah, I think back to your main question of making the sport, being more aware or getting more eyes on the sport, if you will. Guys like yourself doing what you're doing, there's obviously other people that have been in the business doing it too. And I mean, we had Alex Martin come to Canterbury, and he was like, I can't effing believe that you guys do that.
Right.
He was just dumbfounded, how gnarly it actually is, because
I didn't even know he attended.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
So yeah, he was just like, it's just nuts. You guys are just hammering for 10 minutes plus 2 laps, and it's like, yeah.
Right.
And it's blown out, and he's like, that is like gnarly, if not gnarlier than Supercross.
Right.
You know, so
I do say that snowcross is pretty freaking gnarly compared to super and moto. I think it's more comparable to moto because those tracks do get beat up and they have, you know, deep ruts and whatever. But I think between the cold and manhandling a 600-pound sled is insane.
Yeah, what they do on the sleds now is insane. And it shows, you know, whatever the biggest stuff is on the track, whether it's the pro guys all the way down to the sport guys, a lot of them can do the same stuff.
Right.
It's just they can only do it for a shorter amount of time or less mistakes.
Conditioned, yeah.
But, yeah, so.
I think a while back when I was getting involved in the sport, there was a time that sport guys, if there was a big triple and only the pro guys could do it, I think the sport guys would get docked positions. Correct me if I'm wrong, if that was a thing back in the day.
There was a few times that they did have some large jumps, and I think it started in Fargo 2013. They had a jump into a corner and someone like just completely weeded themselves. And, I don't know, that wasn't every time, but we've seen it multiple times. I think ERX was one of them. The second time
You
where
could turn the mic too.
oh yeah, definitely like maybe it was the first time when they went the normal way. I don't remember, but you see guys getting landed on. It's because these guys like the finish line jump. There was a couple, you know, sketchy things there, and it's these kids cutting their teeth, knowing they have to do it to even be competitive in that class, and you know, I don't know. Kids get hung up, especially in those lower ranks, and it sucks, but, you know, have some goddamn track awareness yourself.
Right.
You're catching up to somebody, and you're going to hit that jump. Like, look behind you, slow down so you can give yourself that run to make the jump properly instead of cross-jumping somebody and landing.
Right,
you know.
or do it in a safer section.
Well, yeah,
catch
like,
up
exactly.
If
like,
you think if you think you're faster.
Yeah, I mean, there's all kinds of things that people could do better, and it's not always just the sport's fault. That's for sure.
For sure. Yeah, rider awareness for sure. Back to like what you were saying with changing the format of snowcross, I do believe that they should bring back like a little bit of the FMX, have a halftime show. You know, I think that would really, really benefit the sport because there's guys out there that, like all those guys at Heydays.
Yep.
Bring them in.
Yeah.
You know, Brett Turcotte, the dude's a legend on a snowmobile.
Yeah.
He used to race pro.
I mean, they do it at Heydays. I'm sure they could find a way to do it at, you know, on bikes and or quads or whatever. I mean, they all run on carpet or whatever, but I mean, the way that they have those airbags now, I think it's pretty easy for them to do. Whereas 10, 12 years ago,
it was a little bit harder.
Yeah, it was harder because you had to jump in the middle of the track with a, you know, landing a mountain of snow, and you're like, oh man, we don't have any snow at the track, and they use it all for the landing of the freestyle crap. But definitely, and they don't have to do it at every event, but I think there's potential to do that where people would just be like, that is an attraction to bring to the stands.
Right.
So
for sure. Yeah.
As monotonous as it is for us to see, you know, a guy do the same backflip the whole year. It's not the same for somebody that's from Sioux Falls, South Dakota, that's never seen something like that in real life. And props to those guys, because there are lots of guys out there that do that stuff. And, you know, for those guys not having X Games anymore, you know, do something, you know, there's all kinds of ways to probably generate money for those guys. And for sure, I think it should be an option that they should be looking into.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. Yeah, it would definitely help the sport, I think, entertainment-wise and whatever.
Yeah, no, I mean, anything's cool, right? I mean,
yeah. So with the growing of the sport, I think that this was the time when you were in the sport too, kind of riding yourself. What about Yamaha getting back involved? They departed at the end of 2019, and we never heard anything back from them, right?
Was it 19? Is that
Or 2009, excuse me, 2009, not 19.
Yeah. They did come back, I want to say in 2014 or
But
something.
wasn't that during X Games?
No.
No,
No, it was like
I
they
saw-
had a four-stroke.
Oh, it was a Viper.
Yeah, and it was
Okay.
like the same chassis as what I don't remember the year exactly, but um, I wish they could. The problem with Yamaha has always been it's kind of been a one-off deal.
Okay.
Back in the mod days, they had, and not kicking them in the teeth or anything like that, but they've always kind of had the wrong group of people, I think, to pull it off.
Okay.
Back in those days, like when they came with a four-stroke, when Robbie was, um, was there and they were running that sled, I think one weekend they had a Ski-Doo skid in it, the next weekend they had a Polaris in it, and they had too many options, and they just, it's kind of maybe the wrong way of thinking that they could do, and it wasn't the greatest setup, and I think the other problem that came also was everything for those guys back then had to be ran through Japan,
Yeah.
and so there was a lot of lag time.
Gotcha.
Just it wasn't the right situation. I wish they were involved. I do. I mean, I think there's obviously Yamaha fans out there in this world.
Yeah, big time.
For the snowmobile side of things, but I don't know that how you'd pull it off, because once again, there's only so many pros. They're going to want to be on the pro class. Sticking a bunch of money at them isn't going to be like.
And that's how you make money.
Yeah, and that's, you offer some guy a ton of money to come and ride this thing, and it's unproven, and it's a big risk for them in their career. And
Well, you could say the same thing about Benham and Yerrick at All Finish,
why?
because it was a risk that they were going to pull anything off.
Well, I mean, they had a group of guys over there with Cheney, and
Yeah, he's top of the line, but he's also very meticulous with skidoos.
Yeah.
know?
I mean, I don't know. I mean, he had enough experience to go, and for those guys, I mean, we're kind of jumping around here off this question, but I think obviously for the all finish guys or Arctic as a whole, I think that's the hardest thing, is to try and keep those guys involved.
Yeah.
And there's not that many guys riding them right now.
Yeah,
and
true.
they don't have quite the support and structure that Ski-Doo and Polaris does as far as support. They don't have any person that's working on their shocks. It's all kind of like what is that? Why can't I think of Kraycheks? And David Otto helps out, and
Yeah.
then all finish, it seems, are kind of on their own, doing their own thing, and yeah, I mean, I'd probably say, for the all finish guys, they probably had a better year as a whole their first year than they did the second year.
Yeah.
And, they probably thought going into this year they would have a better year. And obviously Yerk getting hurt, that took away one rider from the pro class. And, but yeah, you just never know. I mean, I hope they stay around. I hope, there's obviously a lot of rumors of those guys closing up shop, but, everybody involved, you want to see everybody stay around. Like, there's no, as a industry, one thing I think that's a stigma or whatever I think that sucks is we're all very competitive, but at the same time we should all be there supporting each other and
Right.
and not be it's more of an American culture, I think, than we're better than this guy kind of attitude. But as far as our sport goes, I think we should be a little bit more open-minded to other people's stuff and trying to help facilitate anybody we can, and their media. Everybody should be sharing together to make this thing bigger, I think. But
I agree. Yeah, it's not like it was back in the day where everybody was so secluded in their trailers.
Yep.
You don't really put a sled outside unless it's a parts sled or whatever. Everybody. Yeah, I see all the mechanics being friendly with each other on the line. It's like that's a really good feature that I feel have grown
Yeah.
through the years.
Yeah.
Everybody's being friendly with each other.
yeah, for sure.
Not being a
Yeah, I mean,
sore loser or anything.
yeah, I mean, we definitely are all competitive for sure, and shit happens. But for me,
We're all here,
Yeah.
like you said, we're all here because we love the sport.
yeah, we are, and it should be all for fun, and stuff does happen. I do wish stuff when it happens. There's mechanics or personnel on teams or whatever you want to call it, they get pissed at what happened on the track or the rider, and it's like you're so removed from that. Like when that sled goes from the trailer to the line and they take off on the start, you got no, as a mechanic, as a team manager, as a owner, as a whatever, you can sit there and be pissed all you want.
Mm-hmm.
If someone runs into your sled or
Right.
you run into theirs and you guys, but by no means that has anything to do with you when you get back to the trailer. And
Right.
like when you're walking by their trailer on the way back to the pits after you bought a bunch of damage to fix too, like
Right.
those guys spouting off to you, like that's not helping the situation. And once again, it goes back to what happened on the track is an incident between the rider and the
Yeah.
rider. It's rider on
teams.
rider crime. You know what I mean? It's
Right,
like,
for
it's
sure.
not. So,
Yeah. So, yeah, back to the Yamaha thing, I think, in my opinion, having another manufacturer in the sport, again, having their involvement would be huge. One, more budgetary dollars
Yep.
involved. Another manufacturer for people to ride. It would be hard if they kept the four-stroke. Because that thing was a tank on the track,
Yeah.
from what I remember.
Yeah.
They only got a couple podiums when Robbie was on the team, right?
he won. He's the only guy to win on a four-stroke.
So, yeah,
But
there you
I
go.
think Ian Hayden got a ISOC, third place in Hayward. But other than that, I think some CSRA stuff they, won and got some podiums at. But other than that, it was pretty touch and go. I mean, sled didn't handle. They had a lot of different people working on chassis components and never really getting a clear window. And I would have to say it goes back to what I was talking about earlier, where go back to mods, you start giving all these teams leeway and options, and you go down a rabbit hole, and
Yeah, that's what they expect.
Yeah, and I think now it would take the right combination of people to pull that whole deal off, and I don't know if that exists right now in our sport. I just don't. I don't know if there's enough guys that have the, you could take a group of guys that have worked together before to be able to help make that a sled that's going to be successful.
What if they came in and did it with a team like they did with Boss back in the day?
Nah, but even still, then it was like people forget. Like back when it was with Boss, like Gary Rode had Polaris team before that, and then got the whole Yamaha thing, and some of the staff that he had. It was almost a whole new staff to come on board for the whole Yamaha deal. So it wasn't like it went from being a privateer Polaris team to, with some support, I guess, from Polaris, and then Yamaha coming in and just going, here you go, it's all corporate now, and then.
Yeah, we're going to do it our way.
Yep. And I think that was probably the downfall of things. So.
Well, if now with the involvement of the way that snowcross is and the way that the motorsports industry is going, you look at factory Yamaha, they couldn't find success on their 450, but then now they're
Star
is their factory team, and why are they having success? So yeah, if you look at the history with Yamaha and dirt bike racing, why couldn't that happen in snowcross?
It could, but I think it would have to take one of these teams that's been established for a decent amount of time, and Yamaha would have to fully get interest, and there would have to be, I think, any way you look at it with any of these manufacturers, I think, like Polaris, you can look at, they basically had the same chassis since 05. That they've obviously refined, and there's many, many refinements and changes that they've made over the years. But, I think you would have to take a group from a factory, a very factory-supported team and then be able to implement, okay, you're on this team. Let's say we'll use us as an example.
Okay.
So using the Skokwist race team, okay, we're on a factory supported Ski-Doo team, and then we're going to go to them next year on Ski-Doos. But right now, Yamaha's with us, and they're saying, we're going to use your facility. We want you to help develop it. And the next year, you're going to be like, that would be such a distraction throughout our season to be able to pull that off. Whereas like motocross, it's year round, and you've got such a bigger spectrum to be able to start year round. You can go to California, you can go to Japan, you can go and make these changes. And I think people forget how, I mean, I hate to keep driving that home about how small our sport is, but it's pretty small.
It is.
And
it is very small.
There's like to make a change or make a sled, like people don't realize it, but like to get, I'll use Polaris because I was there, but I know like for those guys to the shocks that they have, like that was out of their budget was probably, well over a 6-figure deal.
You're talking about Walker Evans?
Yeah.
Okay.
Like, they already had Walker and Walker supported them, but a few years ago when they went to like the same pro shocks, what comes on, like that was a big 6-figure deal to be able to do that. And so that has to come from somewhere. And, that comes out of Polaris's budget, and, they have to divide that up over the next couple of years to make that work.
Right.
So, whether it's Polaris or Ski-Doo, I mean, I'm sure Ski-Doo has something in the works in the future and the next generation, and Polaris probably does too, but, it's a lot of money to be able to swing that, and when's the right time to put it in there?
Yeah, true.
So.
True. And if anybody's going to have interest.
Yeah, you're going to talk about bringing a manufacturer to a team that's out there like Yamaha. It's going to take a lot of money.
Yeah.
And I mean,
they got their foot in a lot of avenues too.
Yeah, I mean, do they really need to have snowcross racing? And I think that's the question that they would have to really sell that to higher ups through Japan or whoever to make that come to reality. And I don't know if that's, I think 25 years ago, I'll say the amount of snowmobiles that were sold in a year versus now.
Yeah, what
is astronomical.
Yeah, what do the factories only budget so many sleds through?
Well, no,
snowcross?
I'm just not even snowcross. I'm just saying as a manufacturer, as an OEM, like we'll use Polaris or Ski-Doo, how many they produced in 2000 versus how many. Well, you take all the snowmobiles together, and how many are produced a whole year, and it's maybe a third of what it was 20 years ago.
Yeah, that's true.
So
that's true.
People aren't buying, new snowmobiles at $20,000 a piece every day like they were back then. $6,000 to buy a new, Polaris XCR or whatever they were back then. I'm just using, but what I'm saying is like that was way more affordable for your regular guy working construction. That's going to be a guy that's going to go out and watch a race or ride a snowmobile.
Right.
And that's still to this day why you see sleds out on the trails that are 25, 30 years old because they still work.
Right. Yeah. Even if they're carbureted and they have short shocks, it's still fun to ride.
Yeah, it's still fun to ride, and that'll never leave our sport. But I don't know that manufacturers can justify the money that they, like 20 years ago, that they put into the sport. It's not the same as what it is now. Back in those days, early days of 02 to let's say 06, I'll use 2000, we'll go 98 to 06, 07. There was guys all the way through the pro class that were making a living at it, you know, and I think, there was guys that were probably seventh place guys that were making good money, and I think, Carl Shabitsky was one of those guys, and he knows that, and I think there's a lot of guys out there too, like the manufacturers know that, where they had more budget to give to pro light riders now, but it was just there was way more numbers racing. There's way more numbers of sled sales the whole way through. It's just kind of been consolidated down, and people worry about where our sport is. I don't think it's, as long as they make snowmobiles, we'll always be racing them.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I agree. I'll agree with that.
I would love to have Lynx. I would love to have Yamaha. I would love to have everybody and make more. But you're not going to want to facilitate a guy that's, a 7th or 8th place guy and put him on a different product and then have him develop it, and then where's it really going? Mm-hmm. So I think right now...
Well, everything's a gamble if you look at it.
Well, for sure.
Isn't that a gamble?
Because
what if they...
Is that a gamble that a manufacturer is willing to support? That's where it is. Is it really, is it a gamble that they're going to, get return on investment out of it? I don't think there is any return on investment in racing. That's the problem.
Yeah. Yeah.
Why take racing dollars, let's say Yamaha, and take it away from their motocross side when they could be putting it into that, where they're going to sell twice as many bikes as they do snowmobiles?
True.
So
yeah,
I mean,
and I'm sure you'd have to look at the mountainside too, is how many mountain sleds do they sell,
Yeah.
But that R&D or that testing that they do a year prior to their full involvement could lead them to having a lot of success.
For sure.
That's that gamble is.
I just don't know.
Like you said,
I just don't know if that. I just don't know if that's there, and I just don't know if that exists in our world today, right now.
Yeah.
Like I just don't think.
So then they probably looked at it when they came back. Well, what did you say? 2017 when they came back?
I think 14.
14.
I don't remember.
So they probably looked at that as a justification of like, should we do this? Should we do not?
Yeah. And they had it was a half-assed program. They brought Steve Taylor back, who hadn't raced in a few years. And,
right.
Some other guy that was like a cross-country guy, and just they're all right, but it was like sled was way far out. Like they showed up, they didn't have enough resources, they didn't have guys that were there to clutch it. Maybe I'm wrong by saying that, but they just were way off the mark,
right.
And unfortunately for that, then it just ends their support, and it is what it is.
Well, then you can't half-ass something.
No.
You got to be.
No, and in their standpoint too, they weren't half-assing it. They were doing the best job they could with what they had, and
they were probably limited on a budget from the top ups,
Yeah.
So I agree with that. Seeing Lynx involved in snowcross would be definitely a change in the game. I think same with the Yamaha if they came back, and more rides, and almost like looking at the KTM Husqvarna gas thing.
Yep.
They got 3 manufacturers now, and it's like Lynx and Skidoo aren't that far off from each other besides the skid and a little bit of suspension, right?
Yeah, I mean, there's more chassis things there, but that's I think from my understanding of where Lynx is, they're happy with what they have over there, and I don't think they want to put any more resources into it here. Right. Which that's a huge undertaking for them, and that would take away from budget for what they do over there with their racing, and it's definitely, everybody would like to see it. I'd love to see it. I've seen it over there many times. I think they got a lot of good riders, and obviously you can see where our sport is with the guys that are the talent pool that we have. You see a lot of guys coming over here, whether they're spending their own money to be on a team and be facilitated. They're willing to spend that money here than be over there, and they're doing a great job though. I mean, they've got some series over there like that. What is it? The Finland series that does the supercross or snowcross thing, and they had only 2 races this year, but there's a lot of fast guys over there that maybe never ever will get the chance to be over here, and that sucks.
Right.
But it's pretty cool. I think it's pretty cool. I wish they would be here, but I don't know if Ski-Doo allows that or what the real bottom dollar is on that whole situation. But yeah, it's pretty cool. I mean, they're a cool sled.
Yeah, so. Regardless. All right, cool beans. Is there anything else you want to touch on? Maybe 2023 snowcross thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot out there. I mean, you've been posting a lot of rumors, so
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, before we started doing it, I told you about like I would have to probably close out some of the rumors or whatever, but one that you have that's true about our team. Yes, Peter's not coming back next year, so you can answer that one and check that off your list.
Check it off Matt Greenwood's list too, because he came up with the list.
Yeah, well, we all love Peter, what he did for our team, and Peter was a great guy and still is, and we love him and always will. And Peter really wanted to get back to the U.S. and we tried to give him the best opportunity here, and it didn't necessarily work out, and it's no hard feelings. It was a mutual deal. We knew that going into the year that if it didn't work out. But he will still be a part of our team to some degree next year. He'll be around in the preseason and helping with testing and helping with the boys, and so we will see him again. And,
that's good.
And he'll be a part of what we're doing here, so that's cool. He's just a great all-around guy, and he wanted to take a step back again and realizing where he is in his life, and he's been doing this for 20 years, and to live away from home, that was tough for him this year. And, even having his wife and kid here, you still get homesick. And I wish Alina and Peter the best. And, like I said, it's not over. We'll see him again. It sucks, a lot of doubters out there obviously probably had, Peter had some good runs this year, and then he had a low in the season. And then it was just, that was a goal. Like, there's not one thing that'll ever be erased, and that was we got a podium with Peter Narsa, and he 100% got to get up there with his kid and Alina on the podium, and that was a goal out of this whole season. So
right, that's awesome for him.
I wish it would have been more. I really do. So it just didn't work out that way. So
right, yeah.
Great guy, man, and I mean, there's a lot of rumors. I think one thing that I think I could put to bed too is, there's going to be there's a lot of rumors out there about stuff, but none of it's, I don't think, has a ton of merit with what you guys' list may be. There's only a handful of guys right now that are signed, and we're talking under 4. So. The rest of the whole shakeup of where people are going to go and what things are, I think, is going to be pretty much a determining factor of there might not be any changes and there might be some. So
yeah, for sure.
But yeah, I think everybody gets excited a week after the season of where people are going to go, and I wish it was more like Supercross and motocross where guys were switching brands and manufacturers. Unfortunately, that doesn't happen in our sport.
Not too much.
It used to be that way back in the days, but it's a big take. Everybody's already the manufacturers have already invested so much into those riders, and so I think for the most part, I think you're going to see most guys kind of stay where they're at. So
yeah.
But as far as next year, we don't have anything ironclad yet, and hopefully soon we will, and hopefully it's the one we want, and hopefully it's what we get, and everybody will kind of be like, oh my God.
Right.
So
interesting. Well, that's good to hear that you guys are looking and have somebody in mind. So, there's a lot of rumors. I always say that the rumors aren't true until somebody puts out a press release, because it's only words around the pits and around the.
Oh,
circuit.
Another one I can put out to bit. Henches will be going racing too.
See, that's what I would. Yeah, that was a rumor, and there was a rumor too that the team was sold. I wouldn't believe so.
No. I don't have any foot to stand on. I've never talked to Nate or Tim or anything. All I know for sure is they will be racing. Cody had one of his best years ever. They're not going to just close up shop, and
that's what I'm saying.
I think that's a little bananas, but I don't know what other ones were out there. Logan was one. I don't know what's going on there. I don't know what's going on at Shearings.
I will say this: when I saw him at Cannonsburg, he came off the track during one of the races, and he said screw snowcross.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and he walked off very angry. I think he got together with Elias, but again, it's like,
In the moment.
yeah, that's just in the moment.
Yeah.
You know, it's an aggravating sport. You know, everybody gets frustrated, but that's part of it.
Yep.
And you know, one bad race isn't going to make you want to quit.
Yeah,
you know?
for sure. I mean, who knows? You know, I think things happen to some guys where they want to step away, and
He's been doing it for a long time.
he has.
too,
But you know, whether he wants to continue or what their path is, I don't know. But
Yeah.
Logan's a great guy. He's been great for the sport, and I hope he keeps racing. He was, you know, he had one of his better years in the first half of the season. So I mean,
For sure. Yeah, getting on the podium
yeah.
with Hunter at Canterbury,
yeah, I mean they were.
1 and 2.
Yeah. So I mean, I hope I hope we don't lose any more riders. I mean, obviously Peter's one that's going to go away this year and not race, and then you know, I'm not sure that Aki will be back, and I don't, you know, there's 2 right there, and if Logan goes away, if that's true, then you know that's 3. I mean, I hope that's not true, but
Right.
you know, who's going to fill in those spots? I know you got Bester and
Lorenz.
I don't think Lorenz is moving up.
I heard, not this season, but the season before, or preseason, that his mechanic Dalton said that even if they don't win Pro Light this season, that was this season that they were talking about,
Oh.
that he's going to move up.
Yeah,
Laris wants
I
him
don't.
to move
I think
up.
things changed after he got hurt this year, but
Yeah, true.
But yeah, I mean, you know, I wish there was more way to get guys up to the pro class. I wish there was more incentive for guys to, you know, there's a handful of guys that in the pro light class that could, you know, do just fine in the pro class and get their feet wet the first year. I mean, look at Travis Kern. He got hurt this year, but he was better than he had ever been. And, you know, his first year last year, he got better throughout the season and started off really good this year and just got banged up. So, I mean,
Yeah.
it takes a few years, I think, in the class to kind of see where you fit, but you got to go back in time and realize, like, 4 years ago, you're racing the same guys, and
Right. Right.
you know, that's our, you know, you can fit into those classes, and I wish more guys would try, you know, that were picked from, you know, whatever they get manufacturer support, we'll say, and halfway through the season, if their season didn't go the way, just go to pro. Like, what's the end goal here?
Yeah. Isn't it pro class?
Isn't it pro class? And like, you know, at least go out there and get in the mix and try to get faster, because as a rider, I think people just get caught in this rut that, okay, it's going to happen this weekend, but screw this weekend around the next one. And it's
Yeah.
like, well, you could probably be better trying in the pro class. But
Yeah. Yeah.
that's just my 2 cents.
I remember before the Andersons left the sport, I think it was not last season, but the season before.
Yeah, they tried
2020.
at Geneva.
Yeah, they tried it at Geneva, and
I
they
think
were.
Doubt did too, and there were some guys that tried on Friday, you know, and stuff like that. And I wish there was more of that. I do. There should be, and there should be that availability to, you know, step back down. I mean, I don't.
Like Whitwer stepping down.
Yeah, I mean, obviously he probably was one that thought he was going to have more success this year, and I don't even think, did he get a podium or no? I don't think he did.
I don't think so.
You know, and
The year prior, he did.
yeah, he got it on the pro class and then stepped back and.
I think it was Fargo.
Yep. Yeah, and I just, you know, it's tough. It's a tough situation, and you know, racing at the pro class and somewhat of a, what do you call it? I guess privateer effort that they had going on there. Like, you know, it didn't work out. You know,
Right.
and then going down to the pro light class, thinking that you'd be able to, you know, maybe they didn't have that mindset, but everybody would think they did.
Yeah.
That they
Oh,
would
so
be
you're
able
talking about when he was on Judnick, and then he dropped down back
No, I mean, yeah,
because he was in pro with Juddy. That's
Yep.
he went pro then, and then
Yeah.
it didn't work out with Juddy,
Yep.
and then he was on Cat and then
by
dropped
himself
down.
for 2 years in
Yeah.
the pro class, and kind of with the support from D&D or whatever. But yeah, I mean, that was probably the biggest no-no I think that I've ever seen, and not nothing against Trent, but it was a combination of things. It's like one thing you don't do in this sport that I think has been proven multiple times is you don't move up a class and switch brands at the same time.
Yeah.
It's not a good combination, and at that time it was probably the worst year to switch.
Yeah.
You know, Ski-Doos were way better. You know, Ski-Doo was way ahead than the Polaris at the time, and you know, they've all kind of evened out now. But yeah, it was tough cookies for him that first year, and then, you know, making a switch halfway through the season, they parted ways, and you know, the kid's got talent. He's fast, but I think there's some things there that need to change in his program to be able to get him to get success in pro light again and then climb the ladder again. I think it's doable for him, but I think he's got to have a little bit more open mind, and that's just my 2 cents. Whether I'm right or wrong, it doesn't matter, but you know, he's one that does. Ogimar's another one. I mean, he's been in that pro light class a long time. Mm-hmm. He is a FIM world champion in snowcross, and you know, he hasn't. You know, could he go up to pro class next year? For sure. Mm-hmm. For sure. I think that would be a right move for him to do, and at his age, for sure.
Yeah.
So.
I agree.
But.
I agree. All right. Well, we're gonna wrap up. So yeah, this was team manager. Team manager Levi Ensrud on the podcast, episode 2. So if you guys like this podcast, hit that like button. Also hit that subscribe button, hit the follow button, and we'll see you guys in the next one.
Right on.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.